The Satire of the Trades, also known as the Instruction of Keti, an ancient Egyptian literary piece characterized by its didactic nature. Composed by Keti, a scribe from Seal, it was intended as a guidance for his son, Pepi. The text extols the virtues of being a scribe compared to other lowly professions. It portrays laborers as enduring hard labor with tired arms and living in poor, squalid conditions, contrasting these hardships with the esteemed and comfortable life of a scribe, whom Keti claims holds a position greater than any profession. Thus, it is a rather interesting insight into life in ancient Egypt, a look into the lot of the common man, albeit through the eyes of an elitist profession. But it certainly is interesting. Hello and welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, good to meet you. If you're coming back, good to see you again. If you want to support the channel, you already are. Those who want to go above and beyond may look at the video description, but a like and subscribe goes further than you think. I'm first going to begin by explaining what the Satire of the Trades is and giving a brief background. Then I will move on to a full reading, and there's a little bonus at the end. So, without further ado, let's get nice and relaxed and we may begin. Oh, if you want to skip directly to the reading, I've provided a timestamp for those who want to do so. The authenticity and intent of the text as a piece of satire are subjects of debate among Egyptologists. Some scholars also suggest that Keti could be the author of the Instructions of Amenemhat, though this connection remains a little bit speculative. Now, while it is only a speculation that this work was also wrote by Keti, I'm still going to do a reading of it after the main reading at the end of the video. Who knows, perhaps by the time you're watching the video, it has been discovered that it was indeed him who wrote the text. I better cover all my bases, don't you think? Now, the document in itself has survived, albeit in an extremely corrupted state, on the papyrus Satire II, which is housed along with quite a few other artifacts from Egypt at the British Museum. Additional fragments of the text exist across various institutions, including the British Museum, the Louvre, the Morgan Library and Museum, and a few others. The teachings from the Satire of the Trades are also referenced in the deuterocanonical books of Sirach, highlighting its historical significance and influence. And it's not just preserved in a few places. It's preserved across a variety of mediums, and this includes papyri, writing boards, and ostraca. You see, it was kind of a teaching tool. Think of it as a practice writing for the ancient Egyptian scribal schools. The frequent copying of this text by students has resulted in numerous surviving copies. However, many of these are riddled with errors due to the inexperienced hands of the scribes. After all, it was mainly a practice document. The most widely recognized and current translation of the document is by Wolfgang Helck, which has become the standard reference for this text and the one that I will be reading later on in the video. The name Satire of the Trades was bestowed upon the document by renowned Egyptologist Gaston Maspero. So what exactly is it in general. Well, our scribe Ketty vividly paints the picture of the arduous lives of common labourers through a lengthy monologue, and I suppose you can pick up a tone of arrogance within it. You'll see what I mean. It's mainly there to urge Peppy to embrace the profession of a scribe as a superior alternative, and it definitely has the tone of a father trying to sell the idea of carrying on the trade to his son. Not so much by extolling the virtues of actually being a scribe, but just by telling him how terrible it would be to do other things out in that burning Egyptian sun. Ketty begins by sharing his observations of the harsh realities faced by laborers, including involuntary labor seizures and brutal beatings. Yes, unfortunately, not a over-exaggeration, presenting the life of a scribe as a kind of refuge from such hardships. Thus, the bulk of the satire is dedicated to describing, often hyperbolically, the severe toil and undesirable conditions of various other professions. For example, Ketty graphically details the plight of a builder of walls who wears tattered clothing, works far away from any rest house, suffers from the physical toll of his labor, and lives in such squalor that he eats with his fingers and can only afford to wash once a day. Once a day? I mean, that's more than what most people get back then, I would have thought. Well, Ketty also provides Peppy with advice on how to conduct himself in a scribal school. Of course, that is a different thing to working on a building site. He emphasizes the importance of seriousness, avoiding disreputable places, and embracing a broad scope on study. After all, Peppy is one of the elite now. He has to act like it. The instruction concludes with Ketty reinforcing the virtues of the scribal profession, celebrating the career path that no doubt a very happy and overjoyed Peppy has embarked upon. Well, throughout the narrative, Ketty not only instructs his son on the practical benefits of being a scribe, but also on the moral and intellectual behaviors that are expected of him in his professional life, and that means outside of work, not just in the office. Thus, the satire of the trades was extensively used in ancient Egyptian scribal schools as the fundamental teaching texts, aimed at instructing young scribes, not only in the ways of writing and getting all those strokes right, but in the values and responsibilities of their future profession. It was kind of a two birds with one stone sort of scenario. Classified as a schoolboy text, it was a core component of the education curriculum, where apprentices were tasked with memorizing and inscribing the passages. This method not only honed their technical ability in writing, but also instilled these hierarchical values of their society, emphasizing their esteemed status of scribes compared to other professions. Evidence of how this education was conducted is found on a surviving ostracon, which exhibits writings from two distinct hands, one skilled and one that is seemingly less proficient, likely belonging to a novice. The educational practice involved the experienced scribe writing a section of the text and starting another, leaving it incomplete. The trainee was then required to continue from where the teacher left off, completing the section. No pressure. This exercise served as a dual test, both to assess the apprentice's memory of the text and, of course, his skill in writing. Now, during the 20th dynasty, which was 1189 to 1077 BC, the Satire of the Trades was one of the most frequently copied texts within the Theban scribal schools. Since Gaston Maspero dubbed it the Satire of the Trades, the text has often been interpreted as satirical. However, this classification is debated among Egyptologists. In fact, Chris Rolson contends that the text serves as scribal propaganda, suggesting it employs an exaggeration and humor, not to critique, but to attract and retain apprentices in the scribal profession. Others certainly concur with Rolson, disputing its satirical nature. Now, one can only understand, if we're going to think about it a little more in a social sense, the apprentice scribes going home from a long day of work and walking past those in less glamorous positions. How would this text have affected their attitudes towards their fellow man, those who were building the walls or digging the irrigation canals? How indeed would they have treated them after getting these ideas in their heads? Well, on the other hand, some argue that the text's exaggerated tone and lightness suggest that it was indeed satirical, just not meant to be taken seriously. It was a bit of fun. Miriam Lichheim posits that if it were not, it would imply a scribal disdain for laborers, which contradicts the respectful depiction of manual workers found in other ancient Egyptian didactic texts, like the instruction of Ptah-hotep and the loyalist teaching. There is also others who add to the discourse by suggesting that while the text contains elements typical of satire, it doesn't fully fit within the tradition of the satire, hinting at a more complex literary purpose beyond mere comedic or critical intent. Now, without any further ado, let's read the actual text, as here I should probably set the timestamp. The beginning of the teaching which the man of Til named Dua Keti made for his son named Pepi, while he sailed southwards to the residence to place him in the school of writings among the children of the magistrates, the most eminent men of the residence. Thereupon he spoke to him, "Since I have seen those who have been beaten, it is to writings that you must set your mind. See for yourself, it saves one from work. Behold, there is nothing that surpasses writings. They are like a boat upon the water. Read then at the end of the book of Kemyet, and you will find this statement in it, saying, As for a scribe in any office in the residence, he will not suffer want in it. When he fulfills the bidding of another, he does not come forth satisfied. I do not see an office to be compared with it, to which this maxim could relate. I shall make you love books more than your mother, and I shall place their excellence before you. It is indeed greater than any office. There is nothing like it on earth. When he began to become sturdy, but was still a child, he was greeted respectfully. When he was sent out to a task, before he returned, he was dressed in adult garments. I do not see a stone worker on an important errand, or a goldsmith in a place which he has been sent, but I have seen a coppersmith at his work at the mouth of his furnace. His fingers were like claws of the crocodile, and he stank more than fish eggs. Every carpenter who bears the axe is wearier than a laborer. His field is his wood, his hoe is the axe. It is the night that will rescue him, for he must labor excessively in his activity. But at night time he still must light his lamp. The jeweler pierces stone in stringing beads of all kinds of hard stone. When he has completed the inlaying of the eye amulets, his strength vanishes and he is tired out. He sits until the arrival of the sun, his knees and his back bent at the place called Aku Rei. The barber shaves until the end of the evening, but he must be up early, crying out, his bowl upon his arm. He takes himself from street to seek out somebody to shave. He wears out his arms to fill his stomach, like bees who eat only according to their work. The arrow maker goes north to the delta to fetch himself arrows. He must work excessively in his activity. When the gnats sting him, and the sand fleas bite him as well, then he is judged. The potter is covered with earth, although his lifetime is still among the living. He burrows in the field more than swine to bake his cooking vessels, his clothes being stiff with mud. His headcloth consists only of rags, so that the air which comes forth from his burning furnace enters his nose. He operates a pestle with his feet, with which he himself is pounded, penetrating the courtyard of every house and driving earth into every open place. I shall also describe to you the like of the mason bricklayer. His kidneys are painful. His work pains him. When he must be outside in the wind, he lays bricks without a loincloth. His belt is a cord for his back, a string for his buttock. His strength has vanished through fatigue and stiffness, kneading all his excrement. He eats bread with his fingers, although he washes himself but once a day. It is miserable for the carpenter when he planes the roof beam. It is the roof of a chamber 10 by 6 cubits. A month goes by in laying the beams and spreading the matting. All the work is accomplished. But as for the food which should be given to his household while he is away, there is no one who provides for his children. The vintner hauls his shoulder yoke, each of his shoulders burdened with age. A swelling is on his neck, and it festers. He spends the morning in watering leeks, and the evening with corianders, after he has spent the midday in the palm grove. So it happens that he sinks down at last and dies, though his deliveries more than one of any other profession. The field hand cries out forever. His voice is louder than the raven's. His fingers have become ulcerous with an excess of stench. He is tired out in delta labor. He is in tatters. He is well among lions, but his experience is painful. The forced labor then is tripled. If he comes back from the marches there, he reaches his house worn out, for the forced labor has ruined him. The weaver inside the weaving house is more wretched than a woman. His eyes are drawn up against his belly. He cannot breathe the air. If he wastes a single day without weaving, he is beaten with 50 whiplashes. He has to give food to the doorkeeper to allow him to come out to the daylight. The weapon maker, completely worn out, goes into the desert. Greater than his own pay is what he has to spend for his she-ass to work afterwards. Great is also what he has to give the field hand to set him on the right road to the flint source. When he reaches his house in the evening, the journey has ruined him. The courier goes abroad after handing over his property to his children, being fearful of lions and the Asiatics. He only knows himself again when he is back in Egypt. He reaches his household by evening, but the journey has ruined him. But his house by then is only a garment and a paved road. There is no happy homecoming. The furnace tender, his fingers are foul, the smell thereof is of corpses. His eyes are inflamed because of the heaviness of the smoke. He cannot get rid of his dirt, although he spends the day cutting reeds. Clothes are an abomination to him. The sandal maker is utterly wretched carrying his tubs forever. His stores are provided with carcasses, and what he bites is hides. And the washerman launders at the river bank in the vicinity of the crocodile. I shall go away, father, from the flowing water, said his son and daughter, to a more satisfactory profession, one more distinguished than any other profession. His food is mixed with filth, and there is no part of him which is clean. He cleans the clothes of a woman in menstruation. He weeps when he spends all day with a beating stick and a stone there, and says to him, "Dirty laundry, come to me." The brim overflows. The fowler is utterly afflicted while searching out for the denizens of the sky. If the flock passes above him, then he says, "Would that I might have nets." But God will not let this come to pass for him, for he is opposed to his activity. I mentioned to you also the fisherman. He is more miserable than any of the other professions. One who is at work in the river infested with crocodiles. When the totaling of his account is subtracted for him, then he will lament. One did not tell him that a crocodile was standing there, and fear has now blinded him. When he comes to the flowing water, so he falls through the might of God. See, there is no office free from supervisors, except for the scribes. He is the supervisor. But if you understand these writings, then it will be better for you than the professions which I have set before you. Behold, the official and the dependent pertaining to him. The tenant farmer of a man cannot say to him, "Do not keep watching me." What I have done in journeying southward to the residence is what I have done through love of you. A day at school is advantageous to you. its work of mountains is forever, while the workman I have caused you to know hurry, and I cause the recalcitrant to hasten. I will also tell you another matter to teach you what you should know at the station of your debating. Do not come close to where there is a dispute. If a man reproves you, and you do not know how to oppose his anger, make your reply cautiously in the presence of listeners. If you walk to the rear of officials, approach from a distance behind the last. If you enter while the master of the house is at home, and his hands are extended to another in front of you, sit with your hand to your mouth. Do not ask for anything in his presence, but do as he says to you. Beware of approaching the table. Be serious and great as to your worth. Do not speak secret matters, for he who hides his innermost thoughts is one who makes a shield for himself. Do not utter thoughtless words when you sit down with an angry man. When you come forth from school after midday recess has been announced to you, go into the courtyard and discuss the last part of your lesson book. When an official sends you on a mission, then say what he said, neither take away nor add to it. The impatient man falls into oblivion. His name will not endure. He who is wise in all his ways, nothing will be hidden from him, and he will not be rebuffed from any station of his. Do not say anything false about your mother. This is an abomination to the officials. The offspring who does useful things, his condition is equal to one of yesterday. Do not indulge with an undisciplined man, for it is bad after it is heard about you. When you have eaten 3 loaves of bread and swallowed 2 jugs of beer, and the body has not yet had enough, fight against it. But if another is satiated, do not stand around. Take care not to approach the table. See, it is good if you write frequently. Obey the words of the officials. Then you may assume the characteristics of the children of men, and you may walk in their footsteps. One values a scribe for his understanding, for understanding transforms an eager person. Beware of words against it. Your feet shall not hurry when you walk. Do not approach only a trusted man, but associate with one more distinguished than you. But let your friend be a man of your own generation. See, I have placed you on the path of God. The fate of a man is on his shoulders on the day he is born. He comes to the judgment hall and the court of magistrates made for the people. See, there is no scribe lacking sustenance. The provisions of the royal house, life, prosperity, health. It is Meshkanet who is turned towards the scribe who presents himself before the court of the magistrates. Honor your father and mother who have placed you on the path of the living. Mark this, which I have placed before your eyes, and the children of your children. It has come to an end in peace. End of the Satire of the Trades. Now, as I promised, and just to finish off, that reading of the instructions of Amenemhat. Now, of course, it's not proven to be attributed to the same author as the Satire of the Trades, but We've got a little bit more time, and, hey, it's something nice to read anyway. So, let's do it. The instructions of Amenemhat. Beginning of the instructions made by the majesty of King Sehetipire, son of Re, Amenemhat, the Justified, as he spoke in a revelation of truth to his son, the All-Lord. He said, "Risen as God, hear what I tell you, that you may rule the land, govern the shores, increase well-being. Beware of subjects who are nobodies, of those plotting one is not aware. Trust not a brother, know not a friend, make no intimates, it is worthless. When you lie down, guard your heart yourself, for no man has adherents on the day of woe. I gave to the beggar, I raised the orphan, I gave success to the poor as to the wealthy, but he who ate my food raised opposition. He whom I gave my trust used it to plot. Wearers of my fine linen looked at me as if they were needy. Those perfumed with my myrrh poured water while wearing it. You, my living peers, my partners among men, make for me mourning such as had not been heard, for so great a combat had not yet been seen. If one fights in the arena, forgetful of the past, success will elude him who ignores what he should know. It was after supper. Night had came. I was taking an hour for rest, lying on my bed, for I was weary. As my heart began to follow sleep, weapons for my protection were turned against me, while I was like a snake of the desert. I awoke fighting, alert, and found it was a combat of the guard. Had I quickly seized weapons in my hand, I would have made the cowards retreat in haste. But no one is strong at night. No one can fight alone. No success is achieved without a helper. Thus, bloodshed occurred while I was without you. Before the courtiers had heard, I would hand over to you. Before I had sat with you so as to advise you. For I had not prepared for it, had not expected it, had not foreseen the failing of the servants. Had women ever marshaled troops? Are rebels nurtured in the palace? Does one release water that destroys the soil and deprives people of their crops? No harm had come to me since my birth. No one equaled me as a doer of deeds. I journeyed to Yebu. I returned to the delta. Having stood on the land's borders, I observed its interior. I reached the borders of the strongholds, by my strength and by my feats. I was grain-maker, beloved of Nepri. Happy honored me on every field. None hungered in my years, none thirsted in them. One sat because I acted and spoke of me. I had assigned everything to its place. I subdued lions. I captured crocodiles. I released those of Wawat. I captured the Magi. I made the Asiatics do the dog walk. I built myself a house decked with gold, a ceiling of lapis lazuli, walls of silver, floors of acacia wood, doors of copper, bolts of bronze, made for eternity, prepared for all time. I know, because I am its lord. Behold, much hatred is in the streets. The wise say yes, the fool says no. For no one knows it without your presence, says Osiris, my son. As my feet depart, you are in my heart. My eyes behold you, child of a happy hour, before the people as they hail you. I have made the past and arranged the future. I gave you the contents of my heart. You wear the white crown of a god's son. The seal is in its place, assigned to you by me. Jubilation is in the bark of Re. Kingship is again what it was in the past. Raise your monuments, establish your strongholds. Fight. And that is the end of the instructions of Amenemhat. Thank you very much for listening. It's a bit of a shorter one today, I know, but hey, they can't all be 9 hours long, can't they? I'd like to thank my top-tier patrons, as being Britt, Charles, Stark Factory, JC, Jeffrey, Wendy, Tim, and James. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank you for joining us today in this video, taking us back to very old times of ancient Egypt. Now, hopefully, by the time that you are watching this video, and maybe we've drawn some more things out of those sands, out of those deserts, perhaps we'll have more to say on the satire of the trades and the instructions of Amenemhat. Who knows? Perhaps I'll make another video in 10 years' time. Maybe in 50 years' time, when I'm an old man, though some of you are convinced that I am already an old man. I am in my early 30s, just in case you're wondering. But that's got nothing to do with the satire of the trades, so I do apologize. Good night, everyone. It's been great to have you with me again, and I will see you next time. Oh, and do what you love, and love what you do. Farewell.